The room went completely silent when the lawyer spoke. To Nathan Cole, I leave my entire estate. The words echoed through the grand marble halls of the Langford mansion. Dozens of shocked faces turned toward the back of the room. Nathan Cole? No one had heard of him before. Near the wall, a quiet man in his early 30s stood frozen. Nathan looked like he didn't even belong there. Just a week ago, he was running a small second-hand bookstore in Portland. Now, in front of reporters, the powerful Langford family, and a crowd of lawyers, he had somehow inherited a fortune worth $75 million. Nobody understood why. But in a far corner, Detective Elena Brooks watched with sharp eyes. Something didn't feel right. News about Nathan spread fast. Reporters called him the bookstore billionaire. TV screens flashed his face everywhere. Some people called it a lucky miracle. But others weren't so sure. Detective Elena Brooks, standing quietly in the back of the room, felt something was strange. She had spent 2 years digging into the Langford family's dark secrets, fake companies, money hidden in offshore accounts, and shady business deals. The billionaire, Harold Langford, had died in a helicopter crash that seemed suspicious. Now, out of nowhere, all his money was going to a man no one knew? Elena's instincts told her this wasn't just strange, it was a setup. And if she was right, the real story behind this inheritance was just getting started. At first, everything looked real. The papers were clean. DNA results said Nathan was a distant relative. The will had the right stamps and signatures. Even Nathan's birth record showed a link to a cousin of Harold Langford, who had died years ago. It all seemed perfect, too perfect. Detective Elena Brooks couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So, she started checking everything. She found out that the lab that tested the DNA had a new owner, and the person who signed the report was missing. The lawyer who read the will had just come back from the Cayman Islands, where Langford's accounts were being investigated. Then, when Elena checked Nathan's birth certificate, she found out the courthouse had burned down years ago. The more Detective Elena Brooks dug, the stranger things got. The DNA test, the will, and Nathan's records all seemed flawless. But Elena wasn't convinced. She found out the lab that had done the DNA test had only recently changed owners, and the technician who signed off on Nathan's results had disappeared. The lawyer who had read the will had just returned from a vacation in the Cayman Islands, a place where some of Langford's accounts were frozen due to suspected tax evasion. And when Elena tried to verify Nathan's birth certificate, she hit another roadblock. The courthouse where it was filed had suffered a huge fire years ago, and all the records had been destroyed. Something wasn't adding up. While Detective Elena Brooks worked tirelessly, Nathan Cole's life was spinning out of control. The sudden fame was overwhelming. Reporters followed him everywhere, trying to get answers he didn't have. Strangers came up to him asking for money, some even treating him like a celebrity. The Langford family wasn't making things any easier. They were angry and suspicious, accusing him of being part of some scam. But Nathan was confused. He had never asked for any of this. He didn't even know Harold Langford. He started to move into the massive Langford mansion, meeting with financial advisors to figure out how to handle the $75 million. But deep down, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The more Detective Elena Brooks uncovered, the deeper the mystery grew. She discovered that the helicopter crash that killed Harold Langford wasn't as accidental as everyone had been told. The pilot had a perfect safety record, and there were no signs of mechanical failure. The crash site was cleaned up too quickly, almost as if someone was trying to cover their tracks. Elena dug into Langford's past, finding that he had a lot of enemies, people who wanted to take him down. She also found a strange email exchange between Langford's lawyer and a secret offshore client. It looked like they were planning a big transfer before Langford's death. Elena's gut told her that Langford's death wasn't a coincidence. It was all part of something much bigger. Then, Detective Elena Brooks received an important tip. A man named Lucas Dale, a known forger, had been in Portland 6 months earlier, using a fake identity. Elena traced his steps and discovered that Lucas had lived just a few blocks from Nathan's bookstore. The more Elena investigated, the more strange connections she found. Lucas had been creating fake identities that looked real enough to fool the courts. He had visited Nathan's bookstore often, pretending to be a writer. He'd even talked to Nathan about his family and suggested he might have rich relatives. Nathan never thought much of it at the time. But now, Elena started to see a pattern. Could Lucas have been behind all of this? Nathan was shocked when Detective Elena Brooks confronted him with the truth. He had no idea Lucas was involved in any of this. But when Elena showed Nathan a photo of Lucas, his face went pale. Nathan remembered him now. Lucas had come to the bookstore often, pretending to be a history writer. They had talked about Nathan's family, and Lucas even hinted that Nathan might have rich relatives he didn't know about. At the time, Nathan thought Lucas was just making small talk. But now, with all the pieces starting to fall into place, Nathan realized he might have been set up. Determined to find out what really happened, Nathan agreed to work with Elena and help track down Lucas. Elena and Nathan worked together to dig deeper into the mystery. They found old surveillance footage and financial records that led them back to one of Langford's companies, Orion Holdings. It was a company that supposedly shut down 2 years ago, but the records showed it was still active. And even more surprising, small amounts of money had been transferred to Lucas for months. One of those accounts was listed under the name N. Cole, Nathan's last name. Elena's heart sank. It looked like someone had been using Nathan's identity to build a false backstory for him. The more they dug, the clearer it became. Nathan wasn't a lucky heir, he was part of a carefully crafted plan to steal Langford's fortune. Elena and Nathan came up with a plan to catch the people behind the scam. They pretended Nathan was about to move a huge chunk of the inheritance into an international fund, one that was connected to the criminals. The moment the transfer was set in motion, Elena and her team were ready. They intercepted the money and caught the people involved. Lucas Dale, the forger, was arrested at a private airstrip while trying to escape the country. The lawyer who had read the will was charged with fraud and conspiracy. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. With the criminals caught, Nathan was free from the scam. But what would he do next? After everything settled down, Nathan made a surprising decision. Despite all the money he had inherited, he chose to give most of it away. He returned to Portland, reopening his bookstore and returning to the peaceful life he had before all the chaos. The remaining money was donated to charities that helped fight fraud and corruption to make sure no one else would get caught in the same trap. Detective Elena Brooks, on the other hand, received a promotion for her hard work. She was determined to continue exposing crimes hidden behind power and wealth. In the end, the scam wasn't just about stealing money. It was about how easy it is to fake a story when the right documents and a believable face are involved.